Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls, and you're listening to Rainbow Country.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
Today on Rainbow Country, the 4-part docu-series, Trans in Trumpland. That and more in episode 442, so stay tuned. The Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hello, my name is Conchita.
And I'm Barbecue.
And my name is Hardcora. And we are the Beat Girls.
You're listening to
Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I'm your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT-FM in Toronto and now proudly in syndication across Canada from coast to coast to coast. The Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together, we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, as well as being recognized as a #1 Canadian LGBT podcast. So, today, my 2021 interview for the 4-part docu-series, Trans in Trumpland. A docu-series that portrays the experiences of 4 trans individuals living in politically hostile states. We'll find out about the making of Trans in Trumpland from the trans filmmakers Tony and Jamie. Plus, in hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, and on this episode, I'm featuring some classic house, some gay 80s, and more. All that lies ahead as we start Journey 442 through Rainbow Country, and our first stop, the Rainbow Country Bookstore. Today, begin Transmission, the trans allegories of the Matrix, tracking one person's transition journey from Thomas Anderson to Neo to Trinity. Writer of comics, screenplays, and teleplays, award-winning creator Tilly Bridges reads from her latest book, Begin Transmission.
The Matrix is a confirmed and intentional trans allegory, written and directed by 2 transgender sisters, Lily and Lana Wachowski. They weren't out as trans when the first 3 movies or the Animatrix were made, but publicly came out as trans before the 4th movie. This changes the context for some of the films, which we'll discuss along the way. I want to remind you that these movies are fantastic humans versus machines sci-fi movies, and that the first absolutely revolutionized action movies and special effects, and there's also entire religious and philosophical metaphors to explore. All of those things are well worth discussing. The movies are so dense and have so many layers, I'm in awe as a writer. But I'm only going to talk about the trans allegories. Please don't take that as an indication I don't think those other things exist or aren't worth discussing. It's just that these allegories are so densely packed with detail about the trans experience that it's going to take this entire book to explain them. Note that the very name, Matrix, means a set of rules and procedures that define how something works. The society we all live in is our matrix, and yes, it does have you, well, many of you. It's the cisgender binary we're all forced into at birth without our consent. It restricts us and harms us in all sorts of ways, which these movies will show you time and again. Neo's our lead, and The Matrix is about his journey in coming to terms with the fact that he's transgender. Reloaded is about all the ways society comes for you once you're out as trans, and wondering if we would have transitioned if we knew how hard life would become. Revolutions is about dealing with our own internalized transphobia and where we might be able to go in the future, or where we hope society might go. Resurrections is about detransitioning and retransitioning, and the co-opting and erasure of trans voices. But we have to go in order for everything to make sense. Neo always presents as male in the movies, of course, but remember this is allegory, and the first movie was also made in 1999. Here we are over 20 years later, and we still don't have a transgender sci-fi action movie lead. We can't hold that against them. The surface level story is about Neo accepting that he's the one, and there will be much more on that later, but his journey is a trans one. His chosen name, Neo, literally means new. His dead name is Thomas Anderson. Thomas means twin, and Anderson means son of Andrew, and Andrew means manly or masculine. This means his name roughly translates to twin of the manly or masculine. This is your very first indicator of just how intentional these allegories are. You don't accidentally pick a name that means twin of the masculine for a trans allegory. And even if you somehow did, if that was the only evidence, then sure, maybe it's a coincidence. But it's only the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. Morpheus, in mythology, is the god of dreams. In The Matrix, Morpheus is Neo's superego and subconscious, and knows of his dream to be his true self. He knows the truth about Neo and spends every movie trying to help him accept it. Cypher is Neo's id and his doubt. A cipher is literally a secret, a code that hides the truth. It plagues Neo, eating at him. His id is so sure that he's in fact not trans and would be all too happy to just never think about it again. Neo's doubt is later personified by Link and then Bugs, but those are very different kinds of doubt that we'll discuss when those characters appear. Trinity is Neo's self-actualization, the person he wishes to be. Her name alone tells you she's Neo, 1, the ego, Morpheus, 2, the superego, and Cypher, 3, the id, all rolled into one. Trinity's in balance, in harmony, a whole person. Also note, she is a woman. The other 3 are men. Neo has to reconcile these supposedly male aspects of himself if he ever wants to attain self-actualization. Note how similar Neo and Trinity look, even down to their hair. None of that's by accident. Everything in a movie is a choice. And not only does this also hold through all 4 movies, I submit to you it is the entire point of all 4 movies. They tell the journey of one person, from Thomas Anderson to Trinity. Agent Smith begins as the personification of society and the passive transphobia it exhibits by designing a system, the cisgender binary, that does not even account for the existence of transgender people. Over the course of the first movie and then through the sequels, he comes to represent active transphobia, the parts of society that acknowledge trans existence, only so they can then attack it and try to make it impossible for us to exist within it. Other important things to know before we start. The Oracle is Neo's heart, later replaced by Bugs. Tank is the trans community, later replaced by Zion and then Io. Locke is Neo's fear. Niobe is Neo's confidence. And the color red is vital to understanding all 4 movies, wherein it stands for unequivocal truth. Know that it stands for truth now, and the explanation for why that is will come early in discussing the first movie. Blue stands for doubt, and yellow for fear. Always. The mixture of these colors is also used to convey more complex things. Purple shows you there's truth and doubt. Orange shows you there's truth and fear. The green overcast of the original trilogy shows you the world the cisgender binary matrix has created is based in fear and doubt. Yellow plus blue equals green. All agents, police, and security guards across all movies are cis white men. This is also intentional. It's showing you who benefits from the false cisgender binary, who set it up, and who extracts power from it to keep themselves at the top. This is also why the architect and the analyst are cis white men. These are the bedrock of the allegories. The foundation of everything else is built on and used to say all that the Wachowskis have to say. The good news is these are explained to you through the movies themselves. We're going to go through them all in order, not exactly frame by frame, but it might as well be for as much as these movies have to say. To truly understand the allegories, you'll need to go in order and read them in the order written, in the order of the movie's release. Jumping ahead will only lead to confusion, so I don't recommend it. But technically you can if you want to. I mean, I'm not the boss of you. I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
"1969 was a big year. It was the year that saw both the Stonewall riots in New York and, more or less, decriminalization of gay sex in Canada. The following year, the Americans celebrated the anniversary of Stonewall with Christopher Street Liberation Day. That was the summer of 1970. They didn't actually call it Pride at the time. August 1st, 71 was Toronto's first official gay picnic at Hanlon's Point. It was organized by the Community Homophile Association of Toronto and Toronto Gay Action. 300 people showed up. Now, that wasn't officially a pride, but Gerald Moldenhauer, one of the veterans of those days, maintains that a march down Yonge Street a few weeks later should be called the first Toronto Pride. That was a warm-up for the more famous We Demand demonstration in Ottawa held August 28th that year, a protest against the inadequacies of Trudeau's decriminalization. By the way, if you want to see some pictures of those early days, check out Gerald's website. It's geraldmoldenhauer.com, and it's spelled JERALDMOLDENHAUER. The first official Toronto Pride was actually the next year, 1972, again in August. Then there was a second Gay Pride Week, August 17th to 26th, 1973. That one was national, not just Toronto. There were events and marches in Vancouver, Saskatoon, Ottawa, Montreal, and Halifax. The focus was political, on ending discrimination against queers, something that was still quite legal across the country at the time. Then, the following year, 1974, there was Pride number 3 in Toronto, August 17th. I came out of that one, so I remember it very, very well. We marched over to Queen's Park to again demand human rights protection. And then they stopped. There was nothing in 75. People were focused on a national lesbian and gay conference in Ottawa. And again in 76, all of us in Toronto were busily preparing to host the 4th National Lesbian and Gay Conference, which happened in September. Gay Days was a big festival in 78, but nothing called itself Pride again until 1981 after the Bath Raids. That's where the misconception that Pride began after the Bath Raids comes from. 81, I suppose, is significant because that's when the shift happened from August to the last weekend in June to harmonize with prides across the US. But that's not the first Pride. So when you hear someone say that the first Toronto Pride was in 1981, you should politely point out that that's not quite true. Toronto and other cities in Canada had our own August Prides for almost a decade before that. And there are still those of us around who remember. This is Tim McCaskill, a gay liberation dinosaur from another planet and author of Queer Progress.
Up next, trans in Trumpland.
Hi, I'm Garrett Conley, author of Boy Erased, a memoir. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBT
BTQ citizens.
A transgender woman brutally attacked in Texas.
She is the fourth transgender homicide victim in Kansas City.
So the Trump administration retracted the legally defined transgender out of existence.
They found the body of human discrimination.
You know what I am? Do you know what I am? A child of God. A child that is deserving of as much love as you. That's who I am.
How does it feel to you to think about that you were once detained here at this facility?
They thought I was crazy for saying that I was a trans person. I was housed with 100 men. They're males who've been detained for so long, and for them to see a female, it's...
For almost my whole life, I haven't felt at home in my body.
Public schools no longer required to allow transgender students to use the bathroom of their choice.
I think the bathroom has always been a tool for controlling people.
The president has announced on Twitter that there will be no more transgender service members in the armed forces.
This particular administration has made it okay to hate again. It has affected the way people are treated.
I wanted to show you something that I brought with me. So this was actually me when I was 12. I just want to let you know that no matter what the president says about you, you exist and you're human.
And to realize that the human being is not separate from nature, but is a part of it.
If you have the support of your friends, you have the support of your family, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you.
Our generation and the young trans people today will continue to fight for our right to exist in the United States and in the world.
Trans people, we're not contagious, we're not no disease. Accept us, love us, we're people.
If enough light shines, people will find a way.
So, director Tony, I'm going to get you to say your last name.
Oh, no problem. My last name is Zasharafatan.
Well said. and producer Jamie DiNicola.
Yeah, that's correct. Hi.
So thank you both for being here to have your voices, your stories be heard by the LGBT community and beyond, especially when it comes to your 4-part docu-series, Trans in Trumpland, a 4-part docu-series that portrays the experiences of 4 trans individuals living in politically hostile states. That's essentially a brief description of the series. But Tony, let's start with yourself. For you personally, this is a series about what for you personally?
Yeah, definitely. For me personally, it's a series that is about the atrocities and the hatred that was spewed during the Trump era and is still occurring right now to this day in states that don't legally protect the trans or even queer communities. So what I view Trans in Trumpland is right now it's like a historical capsule of the past 4 years were like under Trump for the trans community, but also what's happening right now, because we're actually seeing more anti-trans bills passed in states like recently, like Montana, for example, and Alabama. So that's what it means like personally for me. It's also a very emotional journey in terms of me hosting the series. So I not only directed the series, but I also share a lot about my personal transition, my family's story of rejecting me and then accepting me, and kind of like taking this journey to meet these 4 characters who changed my life in a lot of ways.
And Jamie, for yourself, this series for you personally is about what?
Yeah, I think for me, similar to how Tony felt, it was about sort of examining when there was kind of this like federal sort of fight to diminish trans existence and trans rights, and kind of the resiliency that trans people had to have for the past 4 years and that we continue to have given the sort of new onslaught of state anti-trans bills that are coming through the state legislatures.
So we follow four individuals. We follow Ash in North Carolina, Rebecca in Texas, Yvonne in Mississippi, and Shane in Ohio. Jamie, you produced Trans in Trumpland. How did the series come about?
Yeah, so Tony came to me like the first week after Trump was elected, and he had this idea. He was like, I want to kind of talk to trans people that are living in more conservative parts of the country. I'm really tired of the way, sort of the political rhetoric that's happening in the country. And I was really excited. And I was like, it would be interesting. It'd be interesting to see you yourself as a trans man kind of go across the country and meet these people. And he was like super excited about that idea. So we kind of worked together out of this tiny coffee shop in Brooklyn and started hiring DP and a PA and all that stuff. But before that, we did a Kickstarter campaign to sort of get some of the initial funds to get the project up and running. So I'm just happy that like him and I as two trans filmmakers were kind of able to make it in our own way, in our own like scrappy way, and get this film out there into the world with very little industry help.
So Tony, you direct the series, but we also get, and you were talking about this a bit earlier, we also start getting your backstory throughout the 4 episodes. Was that always the plan?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is it was and it wasn't. So we knew, Jamie and I, going in that I wanted to be on camera and host it in some way as like a trans person that leaves kind of this liberal bubble of New York City to see what it's like in the worst states during the Trump era. So we knew that during production, I would have to share my story and interact with each character in a certain way. But we didn't really know how much I had to be involved until we started editing the series. So that was like, I want to say early 2020. And in the editing process, we realized that there had to be a common thread between all of the 4 characters since they're so diverse. And we realized that all the characters in some way, coincidentally enough, had very supportive mothers or mothers played a role. And for Ivana in Mississippi, she's even a mother to a bunch of trans and queer homeless youth. So I thought to myself, well, my experience with my mother was also very unique. And I went through these phases of rejection with my family, reconciliation, and eventually acceptance. So in the editing process with Jamie and my team, we realized that I had to kind of do some more voiceovers or be a more active element in the story. So that's when it came together, was after filming. And it definitely took a lot of like vulnerability on my end. I think that, I'm happy I did it, but it was emotional at times. Yeah.
So Jamie, the concept, going into heavily Republican states and documenting the experiences of trans individuals, the concept for this, how did this particular concept come about?
Yeah, so Tony came to me with the idea of kind of interviewing people from more conservative parts of the country because he was, I think, kind of tired of having it be like only trans people on like coastal liberal cities like New York and LA and San Francisco kind of maintaining the main trans narratives. So he wanted to explore more of what it was like for folks that were just living in, like suburbs around the country, conservative parts of the country. And I was really excited about that, but I thought it'd be interesting to have him be on camera to actually see, trans joy, him interacting with the subjects, him being able to find commonalities with the subjects. So that's kind of how that started. And I'm really happy that winded up coming to fruition, because I think in the edit, it really came together to kind of see his storyline unfold alongside the 4 subject storylines.
So speaking of the subjects, you follow Ash in North Carolina, Rebecca in Texas, Yvonne in Mississippi, and Shane in Ohio. Tony, how did you decide on the subjects that you would feature for this docuseries?
So yeah, that's a good question. It took a lot of planning on Jamie and I's end. We had to really think about who was ready to tell their story publicly and who would be like the most vulnerable in the country during the Trump era, and who kind of like had this interesting story. So Shane and Rebecca were very, very easy, because Shane had been an internet friend of mine for like the past 4 years on Facebook. So I just reached out to him. I said, Shane, I would love for you to be part of the full series called Trans and Trumpland. What do you think? Would you like to be part of it? And he said, absolutely, sure. That was easy. Rebecca, I had known for a couple of years, and Jamie and I had shot a short film about her in 2018 in Texas. So I reached out to Rebecca and I said, I would love for you to be part of the full thing. And she said, absolutely. So Ash and Daisy were actually the hardest, because finding a supportive parent of a trans youth plus like getting their consent, since Ash is a minor, was a bit tricky. There were like, I want to say 3 or 4 other people that we interviewed, but it didn't work out. So we found him through PFLAG Triangle, which is like in an organization in North Carolina, and they connected us. And then Ivana was not too hard to find. I posted, does anyone know a trans activist, preferably a trans woman, who works in the Deep South in the Bible Belt? And someone said, yeah, Ivana in Jackson, Mississippi. So I was sold right away. So a lot of internet and networking got me to all the 4 subjects.
So let's talk about the episodes. There are 4 episodes, and each episode features one subject in particular. Jamie, was there ever any discussion about this, which is a 4-part series, ever being a movie originally? Or was it always a 4-part docuseries?
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually was, conceived as a feature documentary. And as we were shooting, we were like, it's going to be very tricky to kind of give all of these characters their own full space, because they have such beautiful, complex, nuanced stories. And then it actually didn't happen until we were all in the editing room, kind of editing with our editor. And he was like, I'm going to connect you to an agent, and I think it'll be helpful in terms of like sales and whatnot. So we spoke to an agent, and our agent, who works at the film sales company, was saying this could actually be really commercially viable if you make it into a documentary series, because first of all, you're giving each of your characters the space to kind of have their own like 30 or so minutes. And you're also making it more commercially viable, because a lot of folks, are at home during the pandemic watching documentary series. So yeah, it's a great question. And it actually was supposed to be a feature, but it winded up becoming a series because of quite a few different factors.
And on that note, we'll return after this Rainbow Country update.
I'm Brian Bradley, author of Outrageous Misfits, female impersonator Craig Russell and his wife, Lori Russellidi. You are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Hi, I'm Jamie B. of TG CD Style Toronto, and I'm a professional feminization makeup artist and stylist, providing male-to-female transformations and mentoring to those who identify as a cross-dresser or a trans woman. I first heard of Rainbow Country and Mark Tara in trying to find a radio station that specifically caters to the LGBT community, and I'm so grateful I found this station. It's crucial having a platform like Rainbow Country that welcomes all aspects of the queer community, including allies like myself and what I do. It casts a spotlight on specific needs and interests of human beings, ensuring that people from all walks of life are being validated. It's a real privilege to be able to work with cross-dressers and trans women by helping them align themselves with their feminine energy through the glorious feminization process. So, I want to thank Rainbow Country and Mark Tara for providing this platform for all of us.
If you, or maybe someone you know, would like to be a guest on Rainbow Country to get the word out about an upcoming project, maybe you have an interesting story or journey to share, well, simply head over to marktara.ca, where everything is connected, and send me an email. It's just that simple. And you too can have your voice and your story be heard coast to coast to coast.
Hi there, I'm Bennett Singer, a documentary filmmaker and the co-director of the new film Cured. You are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
I want to focus in on 2 episodes in particular. Episode 1 focuses on a young man, Ash, from North Carolina, born female, and came out as trans at the age of 12. For me, what hit home was home video of this little person, I guess maybe 3, 4, 5, walking around, playing around with their mom, and born female, but saying that they were a boy at the time on home video. Tony, did that surprise you when you saw those home movies?
Oh, for sure. So interesting story on that. We found that was another like post-production thing that we found when we were given about 30 home movies from Ash and Daisy, and they said, hey, go at it, review them, make them digital. So I sat down and I watched everything and I said, this was like, oh my God, like 16 hours of reviewing that footage. And I said, what the hell? Like, this is Ash at like 3 or 4 saying I'm a boy. And I texted Daisy and she's like, oh wow, I don't even remember that. Because it was her ex-husband in the video. And I was like, yeah, no, he's saying it. And she wasn't shocked by it. But I remember like talking about this like with Jamie and my editor. I said, I literally found footage of Ash saying this. Like, this is wild. And so when we found all of this great footage, I was like, this is amazing, because I love showing things on camera that represent the past and like still engage the viewer. And I was like, there is just so much evidence of Ash knowing who he was at a young age. And even though I didn't say it as publicly as Ash did on the home movies, I think in my home movies too, you can kind of see a little bit of my discomfort with my body and people not seeing me as male. So absolutely, as a filmmaker, I was like, this is awesome, like really awesome.
It's powerful. It's powerful. Tony, let's stick with yourself. In episode 1, we hear the term dead name. Can you speak to that and what that means?
Yeah, definitely. So dead naming is essentially when someone uses the old name or the name that someone was given at birth to reference a trans person. So like someone comes out as trans and they're like, I'm going by Ash. And that person then uses their old name repeatedly. That's dead naming. And it can be very triggering to a trans person, certainly. And, you know, I've had it done too before. And so that was a big theme in episode 1, because Ash, his school mistakenly put his dead name on the first day of school in high school on the wall, the projector for all to see. And students were like, well, I thought you were Ash. And he's like, I am Ash. And it was like very, very bad moment, triggering moment for him. So that's what dead naming is. It's the use of the old name.
And Tony, in episode 1, we start getting your background story, and you're sharing with Ash about you at the age of 19, I guess, really being able to verbalize that you were transgender, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Correct. Yeah. We had that like emotional, and like there were so many times while filming Ash and his mom where I wanted to just like cry, because it made me really happy to see Ash so supported. And I thought about my life and how my parents like disowned me for 2 years. And yeah, I didn't even know what trans was growing up. I only found out what like the word trans was mentioned to me in a trans support group at my old college at the age of 19. I remember going to this group, and there was a trans man, and he said, yeah, I'm a trans man, I'm a trans this, trans that. And I was like, what does that mean? Because I had seen gay and lesbian stories growing up in the 90s, but I didn't have like YouTube or this and that Gen Z does. So I remember feeling very shocked and like very into it, though, very curious about it.
So Jamie, another episode I want to focus in on is episode 3, where we meet Yvonne. Is it Yvonne or Ivana?
She says Ivana, but quite a other people say Yvonne. So I believe she goes by Ivana mostly. Yeah.
So Ivana from Mississippi, talking about her trans experience, but also talking about being a descendant of slaves. And I believe it was her great grandmother that was a slave. Were you there when the filming of this particular scene was happening?
Yeah, I was. I was always kind of near, behind the camera, especially when Tony was in front of the camera. I kind of had to do more of that behind the camera work. But yeah, I was there and it was really powerful. And I was just so grateful that she felt comfortable enough to share kind of her feelings in that moment with us, because she kept saying how it brought up so much for her to be on the grounds of that church, that gravesite, and, how many of her past family members were buried there.
For me, watching that scene, it made me realize that me as a gay person, being gay is one aspect of yourself, and being trans is one aspect of oneself. But there, talking about being the descendant of slaves, it hits home that it's a bigger story. Talk to me about the power of that particular scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that scene was especially powerful because I think there's this problem in our culture where we see trans people as like a monolith. Like there's just one story, there's one narrative. I think that Trans and Trumpland does a really good job of showing the intersectionality of trans people. And clearly that's not the only part of our identity. Like, for me personally, I'd like to be thought of just as a filmmaker instead of a trans filmmaker, but I think that's kind of far off from now. But I think, for Ivana as well, like she does so much work that doesn't have to do necessarily with her being trans. She does work, social justice, different issues. And I think that, her identity plays a big part of that, but that's not the only thing about her. And I think like the really beautiful thing that Tony was able to do is show kind of the nuance of every character and the intersectionality of every character. And through that, just humanizing them even further.
Tony, for yourself, what did it mean to be there during that particular scene?
Yeah, no, definitely. It meant a lot. I think speaking to like agreeing with Jamie and what he said is like, it kind of, to me, shows like the complexity of, being trans. And yeah, I just kind of felt like crying during that scene as well, which I did like in so many moments. Just because Ivana is like such a powerful symbol in the deep south of like this trans mama who takes everyone in and just wants to protect them. So a lot of Kleenex. So I just wanted to like cry. And there were so many moments where I wanted to like escape the camera and just like go behind it. But I was like, I gotta stay strong and be present and, whatnot. And I had so many like supporting people around me that like, Jamie and my cameraman to help. But yeah, that's kind of how I felt, was like, like sadness, want to cry, but also just like so inspired by, Ivana and all the characters.
How long did it take to film this series?
Yeah, so we were on the road from about the end of September until the mid portion of December. So like right before the lockdowns hit for the COVID pandemic. So I would say a good 3 months of just perpetually being on the road. My family was like, "Where have you been?" Yeah, it was a lot of that.
So Jamie, let's stick with yourself there. You are an award-winning filmmaker. In 2017, your short film Spot won Best Short Screenplay at the Westfield International Film Festival. First of all, congrats on that.
Thank you.
You were also named one of 10 trans filmmakers you should know by Huffington Post. So nice to know you. And here's a question. How did you get into filmmaking in the first place? How did this all come about for you?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And thanks for the praise. I appreciate it. Basically, I got into filmmaking kind of a winding path in life. I come from a first generation Italian-American family, and they very much were like, if you're not going to be a doctor or a lawyer, you're not going to be successful. So I went to law school, graduated from law school in 2018, and really, really hated working in the law, and have been making films. Actually made Spot, the film that you just mentioned, while I was in law school with money that I got from a law school scholarship. So I had always been making films throughout being in law school, and then finally took the plunge and, started working full time in film. And I'm so happy that I've been able to do it because I really do feel like, Tony and I have a unique perspective, have a unique voice. And I really hope that the industry will allow for more authentic storytellers like him and I.
And Tony, for yourself, how did you get into films and filmmaking?
Yeah, same sort of thing with Jamie. I had a roundabout kind of way of getting into film. I had taken some film courses undergraduate at Wesleyan, where I went for my bachelor's, and I wasn't allowed to major in film in college because, similar to Jamie, I come from a first generation background. My mom was from Greece and my dad was from Iran. So there are cultures where you're either a doctor or a lawyer as a marker of your success. So they were like, well, we don't allow that. We're not going to allow you to major in film. And so after graduation in 2010, I began making films in 2012, part-time with my full-time job, which provided income. And around 2012, I got introduced to Jamie, and he helped edit my first short film. So from there, I kind of like balanced working in healthcare with working in film. That is until 2016 when Trump took office, and I realized, well, I love filmmaking. This is where I'm meant to be. I love being creative. I took the plunge then, and I realized like I have to do filmmaking full time. So I kind of like snaked in, like it was like a winding road to get to where I am now. But I always knew that I wanted to be a storyteller through the medium of film, but my family wasn't always supportive of that. And still they question it as well. They're like, when are you getting a real job? I'm like, this is my job.
Have they seen the docuseries?
So I know my mom probably is like really proud because like we had a really good relationship before she passed. And I know she's like, you know, probably up there smiling and is like, this is great. But my father hasn't. I'm actually don't talk to my father very much. And so he hasn't. And the only family members who have watched are my brother and one cousin and some family abroad in Greece and Australia, just like being supportive. So yeah, I have a lot of family that hasn't watched it yet. So it's pretty upsetting.
And during the series, you talk about your relationship with your mom, that basically she disowned you for a few years and then you guys reconciled before her passing, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, she, so I came out as trans and physically started transitioning in 2011. So I was 22. So in 2011, when I told my parents over the phone, they had gotten to a point of saying, why is your voice deepening for like 6 months? And my mom was like, there's something up. Finally told them in like the spring of 2011, I said, listen, I'm a trans guy. This is how I've always felt. You may have saw signs of it. I'm on testosterone. That's why my voice is changing. So they've hung up the phone. My mom hung up the phone on me. Didn't talk to me until like 2 or 3 years later. So like 2014 or so. My mom came around. She said, I want to spend Thanksgiving with you. We spent Thanksgiving and Christmas together that year. And then we spent 4 good years together where she accepted me. And my family does accept me now. Like no one's used like the wrong pronoun or name in like years. So yeah, then she unfortunately passed away suddenly in 2018. So it sucks because we could have had like still a really good relationship, and she supported my filmmaking actually. So yeah.
And Jamie, for yourself, we don't necessarily get your backstory, but maybe we can get a bit of it here now. For yourself and your trans journey, when did this all start for you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so like I said, I come from a first generation like Italian American family, went to Catholic school when I was young, so I had very little representation and very little language to kind of parse through my feelings and what I was going through at the time. And I came out as trans in college, actually, because it was the first time I heard the word trans. Similar to Tony, I just didn't have access to those things. So I'm very, very happy that people do have, like Ash, have access to those words now. So yeah, started physically transitioning kind of in 2012, kind of around the same time as Tony. And yeah, have luckily had a pretty supportive family. They went to a couple of PFLAG meetings in the beginning because they didn't really understand kind of the physical part of transitioning. But thankfully, they all came around and they're all very supportive of me now, even though they're a little wary of my career choices. But yeah, I've been very, very lucky.
And has your family seen the docuseries?
They have, yeah. Even though my mom's wary of my career choices, she watched Trends in Trumpland and called me and said she was very proud of me and that, she feels like she doesn't have to worry about me very much anymore because, she sees that I'm like a talented filmmaker and that was nice to hear.
I can imagine.
Yeah, certainly.
Talk to me about trans wave films. What is trans wave films, Jamie?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So yeah, Tony and I, when we started off on our journey creating Trends in Trumpland, we knew we had to formalize kind of into an LLC just for like tax purposes, legal purposes. But then while, making Trends in Trumpland, we really started to see sort of the impact that having a trans run production company was having for people. And like so many people reached out to us just on Instagram and Facebook and said how happy they were that, we exist as a company. So I feel like we're kind of lucky that we've sort of hit this like niche where I think a lot of companies are trying to create trans content now and they're looking for trans production companies. And a lot of people are trying to hire authentic storytellers. I think there could be more of that done, but I think there is certainly kind of companies are moving in that direction, thankfully. So Tony and I, formalized Trans Wave Films while producing Trends in Trumpland, and now have kind of moved into developing some other projects under Trans Wave Films. So it's really just Tony and I kind of chugging away and developing projects and pitching projects at this point.
So Tony, how do you and Jamie know each other? I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but was it just you were looking for an editor or a producer, or talk to me about how the two of you actually met?
Yeah, definitely. So we met back in 2012 or 2013, and I had at the time I was organizing like GoFundMe or Kickstarter to fund my first film, and Jamie reached out and he's like, "Oh, this is great," because it was about a trans man. So Jamie spoke to me about how he felt like there wasn't enough trans masculine representation in media and film, and I agreed with him. So we kind of struck up conversation and friendship, and like we started working together because Jamie edited my first short film. We went to like a conference together, and yeah, like we stayed in touch over the years. We began working together more, kind of producing each other's films or giving just like creative feedback. So yeah, that's how it started. Is we met on Facebook, I believe. Yeah, on Facebook. Mm-hmm.
So, what is the plan with Trans in Trumpland? I know it's on a service called Topic?
Yeah, so right now it's on Topic, and Topic is similar to like kind of an add-on like Cinemax or something like that. So you can download the Topic app directly onto your Apple TV or to your Roku if you have that, or you can go directly on topic.com to watch, or you can just type in Trans in Trumpland on Google and then it'll pop up on Amazon Prime, and it'll give you the option to do a 7-day free trial of Topic, and then you can watch it directly on Amazon Prime or Apple TV. So it's widely accessible across all like SVOD platforms.
Nice. And out of curiosity, did you guys ever put in for any like festival, like doing the festival circuit or anything?
Yeah, no, definitely. So we're thinking about that more right now. We submitted to a bunch of international fests because we're really curious about having this distributed internationally. Especially we're getting a lot of requests from the UK, Germany, and Australia, like a lot of requests. So we're thinking of submitting more and more, and have submitted to international fests. We're waiting to hear about like Tribeca, for example. So yeah, this could be something that's picked up for like a festival run over the next coming year or so.
So after production, you just went straight into having it be on Topic? You didn't do the festival circuit or anything at first?
Yeah, we were really lucky in the fact that it was acquired without a festival run, which is pretty rare. So yeah, we're like really thankful that Topic was able to sort of see our like creativity and vision for the series even before it was completed. So yeah, it's just amazing that it's available to everyone on Amazon Prime and Apple TV, even without having a festival run. So very thankful.
So what's coming up next for Trans Wave Films? Right now you have Trans in Trumpland, but what can you hint at what may be coming next?
Yeah, so I can speak a little to one of the projects. So I do a lot more like writing and narrative type filmmaking work. So I'm finishing up a script about a trans activist from the 1980s, and have like optioned a book and have turned that into a script, and am now kind of pitching it out to different production companies that could hopefully give us the green light. So that's one of the projects, and then Tony can tell you about the other one.
Yeah, and so in addition to that, we're working on a queer trans dating show about like a group of 7 or so people, and they're trying to find love, and along the way, they're trying to find the acceptance of themselves, and like it's like that quote, "How are you going to love someone if you can't love yourself?" So we think that there is a big need for that, to show the realities of dating while trans and queer. So yeah, that's the second project. So we keep busy for sure.
So, Jamie, when people watch Trans in Trumpland, and they should, because it's a powerful docu-series, Jamie, what would you like the audience to come away with after they see this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really just hope that, for the people who might feel like trans people are this like weird kind of like subgroup of people, that they really just see us as like fully fledged humans with like messy, beautiful, complicated lives. And I feel like showing more of that sort of realistic side to trans folks instead of the traditional tropes is really what's going to move the needle for trans people to, for cis people to see us as fully fledged humans that are just trying to do our best. And I hope for the policy end of things, I really hope that, the more people that support trans rights, maybe that'll move the needle and kind of stop the tide of these anti-trans laws that are happening in different states around the US.
And Tony, for yourself, what would you like the audiences to come away with after seeing your docu-series?
Yeah, I would love for them to just simply see trans people as human and worthy of equal rights. Specifically in like the series, I think what you see is a lot of us in everyday situations. So we're your neighbors, we go to school with you, we work with you, we go to church with you. So I think that people who aren't queer or trans and watch this, they can see like trans people in these everyday roles. And I think that's so humanizing. And I think there's also this like shift towards trans joy in the series as well, and seeing all of the people featured in the series like becoming happy, even though they have a lot of odds stacked against them. So those would be my main takeaways for viewers.
Well said, both of you. Tony, Jamie, thank you both so much for your time. Thanks for being on the show, and thank you for such a powerful, powerful series. Well done. And maybe there'll be a part 2. Who knows?
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And who knows, maybe a part 2, a season 2.
I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens.
A transgender woman brutally attacked in Texas. She is the 4th transgender homicide victim in Kansas City.
The Trump administration returned the legally defined transgender out of existence.
They found the body of human discrimination.
You know what I am? Do you know what I am? A child of God. A child that is deserving of as much love as you. That's who I am.
How does it feel to you to think about that you were once detained here at this facility?
They thought I was crazy for saying that I was a trans person. I was housed with 100 men. They're males who've been detained for so long, and for them to see a female, it's...
For almost my whole life, I haven't felt at home in my body.
Public schools no longer required to allow transgender students to use the bathroom of their choice.
I think the bathroom has always been a tool for controlling people.
The president has announced on Twitter that there will be no more transgender service members in the armed forces.
This particular administration has made it okay to hate again. It has affected the way people are treated.
I wanted to show you something that I brought with me. So this was actually me when I was 12. I just want to let you know that no matter what the president says about you, you exist and you're human.
And to realize that the human being is not separate from nature, but is a part of it.
If you have the support of your friends, you have the support of your family, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you.
Our generation and the young trans people today will continue to fight for our right to exist in the United States and in the world.
Trans people, we're not contagious. We're not no disease. Accept us, love us. We're people.
If enough light shines, people will find a way.
That was my 2021 interview for the 4-part DOCU-series Trans in Trumpland, which is streaming on Topic, Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, and Roku. For more information, simply visit transinTrumpland.com. When did gay pride become just pride?
I can answer that for you, and I can answer where the big turnaround was, and it's a very simple thing. Corporatism is when gay pride became pride. As soon as we got corporate sponsors, as soon as we had the approval of the corporations around us, oh my God, the beer company's going to sponsor it, and they're going to give us a float, and look at the telephone company's going to do something, and someone else is going to do something.
But drop the gay.
Yeah, drop the gay and include everyone. And I always thought, why should we include everyone? This is a gay pride celebration. It is for people who are in a sexual minority. We had something that was for us to make people recognize who we are and to acknowledge that we actually existed.
Award-winning playwright and author Brad Fraser reflects on some important gay history. The time frame, the 1990s. When gay pride becomes pride, with the introduction of corporate sponsorships.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, simply head over to marktara.ca, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, check out my socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we are living in days of making dreams come true, so believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, I'm songwriter and producer Jim Valance, and you are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.